Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at something that is, well, it's literally all over us.
Everywhere.
Right. Everywhere. You see it every single time you look in the mirror, every time you shake someone's hand. And yet, I'm willing to bet that most of us have a pretty one-dimensional view of it.
Yeah, the standard cosmetic view.
Exactly. We usually just think of it as color. You know, the thing that gives skin its shade, or the thing that decides if you get a tan or a sunburn.
Right. But it's so much more than that.
It really is. After reading through this stack of sources you sent over, which, by the way, that was a serious mix of material.
I know. I threw a lot at you.
You did. We've got biochemistry reviews, evolutionary biology papers, some really dense medical summaries. But getting through it, I realized that thinking of melanin just as a color is, well, it's like saying a smartphone is just a flashlight. You're completely missing the actual operating system.
That's a great way to put it, because when you strip away the social baggage and, obviously there is a lot of history there, and you just look at the machinery, melanin is arguably one of the most sophisticated high-performance materials in the natural world.
Yeah.
It's not just paint on a canvas. It's a highly functional evolutionary shield.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We want to move past the surface level stuff. We're going to unpack the physics, the chemistry, the evolutionary trade-offs, and we definitely need to clear up some of the wild myths floating around the internet about this.
Oh, the myths are rampant. But honestly, when you stick to the science, the reality is actually more impressive than the fiction.
Totally.
This is a story about how life adapted to a hostile universe. Specifically, how we survived living next to a giant ball of burning gas.
The sun.
The sun.
It's a love-hate relationship for sure. Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start at the absolute beginning. Because in my head, before reading all this, I just pictured melanin as this, I don't know, this brown liquid just floating around in our bodies.
A lot of people do.
But the sources corrected me immediately. It's not just one simple molecule, is it?
No, it's not a single ingredient like salt or sugar. You can't just write a simple, clean chemical formula for it like H2O.
Right.
To a biochemist, melanin is what we call a biopolymer.
A biopolymer. Okay, break that down for us non-chemists.
Sure. So think of a chain. A polymer is just a large molecule made of repeating subunits.
Like plastic.
Like plastic, exactly. Or DNA. DNA is a polymer, too. Melanin is a really complex, almost chaotic scaffold of molecules derived from an amino acid called tyrosine.
Tyrosine, okay.
And it's not just floating around randomly. It's manufactured.
Yeah, I love this analogy in the notes, the biological factory. So we have specialized cells actually doing this manufacturing work.
We do. They're called melanocytes. And if you look at them under a microscope, they look completely different from regular skin cells.
How so?
They look like octopuses.
Octopuses.
Yeah, they have a central body and then these long tentacle-like arms that literally reach out to the surrounding cells.
That is a wild image. An octopus just hanging out in your skin.
Yeah.
So what's happening inside the octopus?
That's the factory floor. So the raw material is that amino acid I mentioned, tyrosine. But to turn that raw material into the finished product, you need an engine, or in biological terms, an enzyme.
Right.
And that enzyme is called tyrosinase.
And the sources mention copper here, right? I highlighted that because it seems sort of random.
It's not random at all. It's the spark plug. Tyrosinase is a copper-dependent enzyme. Without copper, the engine doesn't start and you don't get melanin.
Wow.
This is why in certain nutritional deficiencies, you actually see depigmentation. The factory literally shuts down because it's missing a part.
Okay, so the factory churns out this pigment.
Yeah.
But it doesn't just keep it, right? Because you said it has those arms reaching out to other cells.
Exactly. It packages the melanin into these little bundles called melanosomes.
Like shipping containers.
Perfect comparison. Like shipping containers. Then, using those octopus arms, it physically hands over the containers to the normal skin cells, the keratinocytes.
And this is where it gets really interesting to me. The skin cell doesn't just take the pigment and dump it anywhere. It places it specifically over the nucleus.
That is the absolute key detail. It forms a cap, almost like a tiny umbrella, right over the nucleus of the skin cell.
Because the nucleus holds the DNA.
Exactly, the blueprint. Melanin is sitting there specifically to shield that DNA from incoming UV radiation.
It's literally a microscopic parasol.
That is so cool. But before we go further, I really want to clarify something because I see this confusion all the time online. People talk about taking melanin supplements.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. But based on what you just said about the factory and the umbrellas, that doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense biologically. Melanin is a pigment polymer created inside your cells. It is not a hormone, it is not a vitamin, and it is not a nutrient you can just eat.
So if you swallow it,
If you swallowed pure melanin, your digestive system would just break it down like any other protein structure.
so you definitely cannot just pop a pill to get a tan. Definitely not. Now, you can take precursors, like tyrosine or copper, to ensure the factory has supplies.
Right, the raw materials.
Yeah, but you cannot bypass the factory by eating the finished product.
Got it. Okay, so we make it ourselves. But we don't all make the exact same kind, do we? I was super surprised to learn there isn't just one melanin. There are flavors.
3 distinct flavors, to be exact, and they function very differently. The one most people think of, the one responsible for brown and black hair and darker skin tones, is called Eumelanin.
The heavy-duty stuff.
It really is the heavy-duty shield. Eumelanin is incredibly stable. Its superpower is that it can dissipate over 99.9% of the UV radiation it absorbs as harmless heat.
99.9%.
Yeah, it is remarkably efficient at preventing DNA damage.
That is wild efficiency. But then there's the second type, the one that explains my red-headed friends, Pheomelanin.
Pheomelanin, yes. This is the yellow to red pigment. You find this in red hair, freckles, lighter skin tones. But here is the twist, and this is why biology is so complex. Pheomelanin is actually chemically different, and it provides much less UV protection.
Okay.
In fact, when pheomelanin is hit by UV radiation, it can be photounstable.
Photostable. That sounds volatile.
It is volatile. It can actually generate free radicals when exposed to strong UV.
Wait, free radicals are the bad guys.
Right.
The things that cause cell damage and aging.
Exactly. So in a high UV environment, having a lot of pheomelanin without enough eumelanin to balance it out can be a double-edged sword.
Because it's not just failing to block the sun, it's reacting with it.
Right. It reacts with the sun to cause oxidative stress. This completely explains why you or anyone with fair skin and red hair is so much more susceptible to burning and long-term skin damage.
That makes so much sense. It's like building a shield out of wood instead of steel. It might cover you, but it can also catch fire.
That is a very apt analogy.
And then there's the third type, which completely threw me for a loop. Neuromelanin.
Yes, neuromelanin. This is found deep in the brain, specifically in a region called the substantia nigra.
Which translates to black substance, right?
Correct. If you look at a brainstem, you can literally see these dark pigmented streaks. But what's fascinating here is that it has absolutely nothing to do with the sun.
So my brain isn't getting a tan.
Let's hope not. Its function is totally distinct. It seems to be involved in protecting neurons by binding to toxic metals, like iron, that would otherwise damage the cells.
So it's more of a janitor than a shield.
Yeah, an internal cleanup crew.
We're definitely going to circle back to the brain stuff later because the medical implications there are huge. But let's stay on the skin for a minute. We talked about the umbrella concept, but how does the physics actually work? Is it just a brick wall stopping the light?
It's not a wall, it's a converter. If we connect this to the bigger picture of physics, energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be changed. When a photon of UV light hits your skin, that's high energy. If it hits your DNA, it can shatter the chemical bonds, causing mutations.
And that's the start of cancer.
Exactly.
So melanin steps in front of the bullet?
It absorbs the bullet. But instead of letting that energy break a chemical bond, the melanin structure vibrates, and it does this incredibly fast. We're talking femtoseconds.
Femtoseconds. What is that, a millionth?
Quadrillionths of a second.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it vibrates and converts that dangerous UV energy into heat.
Heat. Like, do we actually feel it getting hot?
No, it's such a tiny amount of heat on a molecular level that you don't feel it as a burn in the temperature sense. But it essentially defuses the bomb. It turns a cancer-causing ray into a tiny, harmless bit of warmth.
That is just an incredible mechanism. But I want to make sure we don't give you, the listener, a false sense of security here.
Yeah.
Because the sources had a really important reality check regarding SPF.
This is vital. While eumelanin is an amazing natural shield, it has limits. The sources state that even the darkest, most melanin-rich skin only provides a natural SPF of roughly 13.
SPF 13. I mean, dermatologists usually tell us to wear SPF 30 or 50.
Exactly. So while darker skin has a massive biological advantage against skin cancer compared to lighter skin because of that eumelanin shield, it is not immune.
Right.
UV damage still happens, DNA damage still happens. So the big takeaway from the medical literature is that everyone, regardless of skin tone, benefits from extra protection like sunscreen or clothing.
Really good to know. Okay, so we know how it works, but now I want to ask why.
Mm.
Why do we have this whole rainbow of humanity? Why did we evolve these different levels of melanin in the first place?
This is one of the classic stories of human evolution. It's all about geography and a biological trade-off.
The trade-off. This was the big aha moment for me in the reading.
It starts at the equator, high UV intensity. If you are an early human living there, the sun is constantly trying to destroy a vital nutrient in your blood called folate.
Folate.
Yeah, and folate is absolutely crucial for reproduction and fetal development.
So if you lose your folate, you have birth defects, and basically the population struggles to survive.
Precisely. So high eumelanin, dark skin, evolved as a survival necessity to stop the sun from breaking down folate. It was about protecting the next generation.
Makes perfect sense.
But as humans migrated north, away from the equator, the sunlight got weaker.
Here comes the trade-off.
Right, because we actually need UV light for one very specific thing, making vitamin D.
Oh.
Our skin synthesizes vitamin D when it's hit by UVB rays. But if you have very dark skin, a very strong shield, in a place like Northern Europe where the sun is already weak, you block too much UV.
You block the very thing you need to make the vitamin D.
Exactly. And vitamin D is essential for bone health and the immune system. So lighter skin didn't evolve as a random aesthetic change. It evolved as a biochemical necessity.
Wow.
As humans moved north, those with mutations for lighter skin survived better because they could let enough UV in to make vitamin D, even in low light.
It's a total balancing act. Too much protection in the north equals vitamin D deficiency. Too little protection at the equator equals folate loss and skin cancer.
That is it in a nutshell. Melanin is basically the slider on the mixing board adjusting to the local environment.
That really puts things in perspective.
Yeah.
It makes the visual differences between us seem so purely functional. But of course, because melanin is this visible, powerful thing, the internet has done what the internet does.
Oh, yeah.
It has created an entire rabbit hole of myths.
There are quite a few, and some of them are pretty out there.
Let's bust some of these for everyone listening. We already touched on the taking supplements one, the fact that you can't just eat a melanin pill. But the sources mentioned you can take those precursors.
Yes, there's a nuance there. You can take L-tyrosine or copper. These are the raw materials we mentioned earlier. If you are deficient in them, taking them might help your body's natural production.
But they won't make you super dark overnight.
No, they won't force your body to become darker than your genetics allow. It's like delivering more bricks to a construction site. If the workers aren't scheduled to build, the bricks just sit there.
Great analogy. Okay, next myth. This one I see all the time on social media. The pineal gland. People say the pineal gland produces melanin, and it's this spiritual third eye connection.
This is a classic case of mistaken identity. It's a vocabulary error.
Really?
Yeah. The pineal gland produces melatonin with a T.
Ah, the sleep hormone.
Exactly. It's the hormone that regulates your circadian rhythm. It does not produce melanin, the pigment.
They sound so similar, so I totally get the confusion.
They do sound similar, but they are totally different molecules with completely different functions. The pineal gland is definitely not pumping skin pigment through your skeleton.
Good to clear that up. Now, the big one. The idea that melanin gives you superpowers.
Oh, boy.
I've read claims about superconductivity, cosmic energy absorption, spiritual awakening.
We have to firmly separate lab physics from human biology here. In a test tube, in a dry, specifically arranged state, melanin does have some interesting electronic properties. It's a semiconductor. That is scientifically true.
Okay, so there is a tiny grain of truth.
A very tiny grain. But inside the human body, it is wet, it's messy, and it is functioning as a biological pigment and antioxidant. The sources are clear. There's absolutely no evidence, zero, that having more melanin increases intelligence, grants telepathy, or allows you to conduct electricity better than anyone else.
Honestly, it's impressive enough that it converts radiation into heat to save our DNA. We really don't need to add magic to it.
Exactly. The biochemistry itself is the superpower. We don't need to invent sci-fi abilities to appreciate it.
But speaking of the brain, we touched on neuromelanin earlier. You said it's not magic, but it is vital.
It is. While it doesn't give you psychic powers, the loss of neuromelanin in the substantia nigra is actually a hallmark of Parkinson's disease.
Wait, so the dark streaks actually fade away?
They do. When those pigmented neurons die off, we see the tremors and the loss of motor control that's associated with Parkinson's. So, in a very real way, melanin is protecting the brain, likely by cleaning up those toxic metals and oxidative stress, just not in the cosmic energy way people think.
That's a really important distinction. It's a medical guardian, not a spiritual antenna.
Well put.
So we've covered the biology, the physics, the evolution, and busted the myths. I want to zoom out a bit now. We talked about how we're all balancing this trade-off between vitamin D and UV protection. What does this actually tell us about humanity as a whole?
This brings us to the genetic perspective, and this is where the science really dismantles some old social ideas. Because if you look at the human genome, the sources stress that all humans, regardless of where they are from, are 99.9% genetically identical.
99.9%. That leaves almost no room for any biological difference.
Very little. The differences in skin color that seem so huge to us visually, they're controlled by a tiny handful of genes. Genes like MC1R or SLC24A5.
It's literally just a paint job.
Essentially, yes. The sources emphasize heavily that race is a social construct, not a biological one. Biologically, we are one species that has simply adapted to different sunlight levels over time.
Right.
A person from Norway and a person from Kenya are 99.9% the same. One just has a genetic toggle switch set to let light in, and the other has it set to block light out.
It's wild to think about how much of human history, how much pain and conflict was shaped by these tiny differences in a polymer that was just designed to handle sunlight.
It is profound. We attached so much social meaning to something that was essentially just environmental armor. It's like judging a car's engine based on whether it has tinted windows.
Oh, that's good.
The tinted windows serve a function, sure, but they don't change the make and model of the car.
That's a great analogy. Tinted windows.
Yeah.
They don't change the horsepower at all.
Exactly.
So to recap our journey today for you listening, melanin isn't just color. It's a complex biopolymer made in a cellular factory.
By octopus-like cells. And it comes in 3 types: Eumelanin, Pheomelanin, and neuromelanin, each with entirely different properties.
It works by converting dangerous UV radiation into harmless heat. It's a natural sunscreen, though roughly only SPF 13, so you definitely still need to keep wearing that sunblock.
Definitely. And it represents a perfect evolutionary compromise. We changed colors to survive different climates, balancing protection against the need for vitamin D.
And finally, it doesn't give you superpowers. But the fact that your body builds its own microscopic radiation shield is pretty heroic on its own.
I couldn't agree more.
Before we sign off, is there one final thought you want to leave our listeners with? Something for them to chew on?
I think for me, the most provocative thing from all these sources is looking inward. We spend so much time obsessed with the external melanin, the skin color, the social implications, tanning. But the literature hints that the real scientific frontier might be the melanin we can't see.
The neuromelanin.
Right. Neuromelanin in the brain is still largely a mystery. We know it's involved in Parkinson's, but we don't fully understand its complete role in brain health yet. So while we've been focusing all this time on the skin, the key to curing major neurodegenerative diseases might be hiding in the dark, in that internal pigment.
The mystery in the dark. I love that. Thank you so much for breaking this all down for us. It has been a fascinating ride from the equator to the Arctic and straight back down to the microscope.
Always a pleasure to dive deep.
And thank you for listening. Keep asking questions, keep looking beneath the surface, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.